Welcome to Test Room, your go-to hub for professional knowledge sharing. In the last video, we explored about how to organize the test in the suits and how does the init file looks like and what is setup and tear down process both at the suit level as well as at the test case level. So in this video, we will explore more on the command line options. In this video, we will understand what is command line interface, why we need them, basic command line operations, commonly used command line arguments in case of robot framework, what you mean by parameterization and running the selected test using the command line. So all of this I will explain you through some practical examples. What is command line interface? Command line interface is a text-based interface that allows the user to communicate with or interact with the computer, softwares or the programs by executing the commands by typing them directly rather than clicking through the menus and icons in a graphical user interface. Good example for command line interface could be the Windows operating system versus the Linux operating system. In case of Linux operating system, most of the tasks are done the via the commands, right? We go to the terminal, we type in some commands. For example, if you want to create a directory, we type make directory with the directory name. But in case of Windows, we go to a folder and then right click and then we try to create a new folder. Similarly, creating a file as well, right? In case of Windows, most of the operations are done via the mouse clicks and going to the user interface via the mouse clicks and things like that. But in case of the Linux, most of the operations are done via the keyboards, right? We go and we type some commands and execute some commands to do certain operations. Okay, and another good example could be the Git is an source code management system, the version control system, and Git also exposes a command line as well as the graphical user interface. Yeah, the normal users basically use the graphical user interface, which is quite handy for them, but the developers always use the command lines. Why we need command line interface? The efficiency and the speed. Command line interface allows the user to perform the task quickly, especially the repetitive and the complex tasks. Second use case is automating the tasks. CLI allows the user to automate the workflows through the scripting. So in case of any repeatable task or in case of any complex task, you can write them, you can script them using any programming language, then you can execute them from the command line. A good example could be if you want to integrate your robot framework test automation scripts into an continuous integration pipeline where your tests are executed without any manual intervention, you can script it via the robot framework commands, right? You can execute your test via the robot framework commands. The third use case is about parameterization and configuration. Command line interface gives a high degree of configurability and parameterization. Okay. For example, let us consider you are writing an integration test to validate a certain APIs, and if this API is deployed in dev, test, and acceptance environment, and you are going to conduct your test in dev and uh, test environment, and you have written your scripts for a dev environment where you have used a variable that carries the base URL of the dev environment. And suppose if you want to execute the same script for the test environment, you need not have to go and change this base URL. Rather than you can pass this the URL from the command line so that your script will be executed in the test environment. So the command line interface basically gives you high degree of configurability and parameterization. Command line tool is a very powerful tool when it comes to the speed and efficiency, and when it comes to an automation, when it comes to an integration with respect to the CI/CD pipeline and things like that. So that is an importance of command line interface. Let us explore some basic command line options to execute the robot framework test cases from command line. In case of robot framework, there is an utility by name robot to execute the test cases via command line. Let us try to understand more about the robot utility. For that, we can use a command called robot hyphen hyphen help from command line. It gives a detailed documentation. So it shows a lot of command line options that we can use to execute the robot framework test. Um, Not only to execute the robot framework test, also pass the variables the basically used for parameterization, setting the output result path, executing the test as a dry run, not exactly executing the test, but checking the syntax of your test is correct or not, and write documentation for the suit, then include the metadatas, etc., etc. All these things we basically explored during our suit section, but you can also do it via the command line rather than going and writing these metadata into the suit file, suit init file. You can also go and give these options via the command line. There are a lot of options that are available to be used in the command line, but we'll go start with very simple option. So if you scroll down here, a simple test run using robot command without any options. You can just give robot followed by the test case name. Okay, let us try to execute this test case using there is a simple robot command. Let us try to execute our test case. For this, let us go to our PyCharm, and we are exactly at the root level where our test cases are basically organized. We have two folders, and one I meant for API testing. Basically, it doesn't contain anything. It is just an dummy test now, just for the demo. So we have organized the test into GUI and API folders. If I want to execute the complete test, all the here there are two tests for the API, two tests for the GUI. I can go and just write a command robot space dot. Okay, I think I can paste robot and a dot. Sorry, it is not a dot, and a dot. Okay, it basically will execute all the test cases under our working directory. So our, as I told, our execution directory is basically the work robot framework built in. This is our execution directory from where the execution starts. When we talked about the variable section, I have clearly explained the different kind of built-in variable. One of them is also an execute directory. So you can find what exactly your execution directory, right? For our case, it is the built-in directory is our execution directory. All the tests will start from there. So if I give it as a dot, then it will look into all the test cases under the built-in directory. So if you see, there are 4 test cases. It will always identify the test cases via this particular section. It will parses each of the robot file. It goes to the robot file. Wherever it finds the test case section, all the all the entries under this test case section is considered as a test cases. So we have the two files where we have a test case section, test cases section, and there are 2 test cases in each file. So there are total 4 test cases. So we'll try to do this command robot dot. You see, it executed 4 test cases, out of which 3 are passed and 1 is failed. So failed test case is basically for an intention I kept it as a failed test case. One test case I by intention I made it as an test case to fail, right? So it executed all the test cases, and you can also observe in our earlier uh, case, right, when we were executing our test in the previous section, these log files were going to a particular directory called as an log directory. But when you execute in the command line without giving any parameters, the log directories log files are also getting generated within the execution directory. Okay, so if I want to execute the test cases which are alone inside the API folder, then I will have to run the robot command by passing the folder name. What is the folder name here? API is the folder name. So it will go into the API folder and checks this, basically checks the test case section and try to execute all the test cases under that. So if you see, it executed 2 test cases now. Similarly, I can go to GUI. It will execute 2 test cases, but one of them will fail now, which is intended. This is how we can use the robot command to execute the test cases. In the official documentation of robot framework under the section 6, which is an appendix section, and you can find the command line options, all the command line that is provided, that is exposed by the robot framework. So we will go one by one, which is basically necessary for us. I don't want to go to all the command line options, but I will use the command line options that are frequently used. You saw when I executed just a robot command with the folder, it executed the test cases under GUI, and all the output files went to the execution directory. If you want the output files to go to a specific directory during the execution, you can specify them by following the command line option. The command line option that is used to um, define where the created output file should go is the / output directory or the -d. So I will just use this particular option, and I go to my the command line here, and here I will just copy paste output directory. I will give a folder called test underscore report, which is under built-in directory. If I don't give any path, by default it will consider under the execution directory. It will go and create an folder called test report under built-in, and then I will give the folder name where to pick up the test cases. That is my GUI folder. So let us go and execute this command. Got the test cases got executed. As expected, one test case failed, and if you observe, all the output files went to the directory called test report, which we passed during our when we try to execute from the command line. We pass this as a parameter. So this is how we can control where the test report should go. Let us go to our folder under built-in. If you see, there is a folder called test report. Under the test report, you got the test reports, right? Out of which the log.html is important for us. Let us try to open this. See, this is our execution. This is our execution report, right? It says that one test case failed due to this particular reason. Okay, let us go and try to correct this particular test case and try to make it as pass under this one. We should not basically use this particular test status from the test case context. It can only be used under the tear down context, right? I will try to remove this and try to execute again. And first let me save this and try to execute. Now you see, all my test cases are passed. Okay. If you want to execute a test case based on the test case name, okay, then you will have to use -t or an test command line option. Okay, so let us go and copy this. Let us go to our PyCharm. Let us bring out the last executed command, and let us also, along with this, let us also use --test option, where you have to pass the test case name. Okay, what I will do, I will try to pass this as a parameter. Since there is a space, it is always better to give, I think, within the quotes, and then followed by your, I think here also we need to go one more space. After that, you can specify from the folder from where you have to basically pick up the test case. So let us see what happens here. And you see it executed one particular test case. So this is how we can you can basically specify the robot framework to select a particular test case. Now I want to execute one test case from this folder, API folder, and one test case from GUI folder. How to do that? So I will not give the folder name. Okay, rather what I will do is I will give as an dot, that means to pick up the test cases under our current execution directory, built-in folder, built-in directory. For that, what I will do, I will also add one more test, and the name of this test would be API test case 2. Go and copy paste this, and then I have to give the directory from where it has to pick up the test case. Here it is dot, that means from the current execution directory. So our current execution directory, if you see, it is the built-in directory. Let us go and execute this command and see what happens. You see it has executed two test cases, one from built-in dot GUI dot test. So its folder names are separated by dot. Built-in is a folder under which GUI is a folder under which there is a test case, and if you see above, built-in API dot test. So this is how we can tell the robot framework to pick up a particular test based on the test case name. You can also specify the robot framework to execute the test cases based on the suite file names. So you can say that I want to execute a particular, or you can tell the robot framework to execute all the test cases under a particular suite, or a particular test cases from the under the suite. Let us try to use this, and let us basically copy this and come to our PyCharm. Now what I will do, I'll remove this. I will remove this parameters, out of which I will use the suite parameter, and the suite parameter we have to pass the file name, right? We have to basically pass the suite file name. I would say that I want to execute all the test cases from the from this particular the file. So for that I will take the refactor and rename. I'll take the file name. So you need to give the file name up to this dot. You should not specify any extensions, right? So just copy this and then paste this, and then so there is a dot. I should remove this dot. Basically this is my suite name, and then I'm followed by the directory from where it should pick up the test cases, that is from the I have given from the current execution directory. Let us try to execute this. Now it has to execute two test cases under which are part of this particular robot file. You see it has picked up two test cases. One of them is AP test 001, another one is the AP test 002. There are two test cases it basically executed, AP1 and AP2. And how to tell that I want to execute only this particular test case? Then you can basically specify the test case name as well, right? Now basically if I give like this, it will execute two test cases, but I can tell him to execute only one test, that is by specifying the test case name. Now you see it executed only one test cases. So all these commands are very handy when you really want to execute when you want to basically select test cases for the execution. You can also execute a test case based on the tags, right? So you can use include tag, exclude tag, and things like that. In our earlier sessions we also studied that you can also associate a tag with a with the particular test cases. Tags are very important way of selecting the test case. For example, you have automated 150 test cases, and some of them are you consider as a sanity testing, used for a sanity testing whenever the build is released, and if you want to check the whether this build is worth to carry out the complete testing, then you can run the only the sanity part and say that this build is good, and you can carry out the entire testing. And you can also might have selected you can also automated the regression test cases. In such cases, you can give a tag as an regression. For the sanity, you can give as a tag as sanity, and for the regression, you can give a tag as an regression. And when you ask the robot framework to execute all the test cases which are with the tag regression, it will go to each of your test case files and try to see based on the tag, it selects the test cases for the execution. So let us use the tags now, and let us give the common tags for both the APIs and for the GUI tests that we have created for the demo, and try to execute them basically. So I will come here, and I will go to this particular file, and I will give here as a tag, and I will say this is a test case I want to use it as a sanity test case, and this is a test case. In my case, it is a regression test case. Okay, this is just an example. Sorry, this should be a tag, and I will use it as a regression. And similarly, here I will interchange basically under GUI. I will make the second test case as a sanity, and I will make the first test case as a regression test case right here. Okay. Now what I will do, I want to execute all the test cases with the tag as an regression. What I will do, I will remove all these commands from here, command line options from here, and I want to execute only the tags with the regression or tags with sanity. For that, I will be using the command line option called include sanity, right? Include sanity. So it will now search for a tag which has a tag as a sanity, collect it and execute it. Yes, so for our expectation, it should run the first test case from API and second test case from GUI. It executed two test cases. Let us go to the report and see which test cases basically it executed. And if I refresh this, it executed from API, it executed 01. From the GUI, it executed a GUI also, it executed 001. Why? Should have executed 002. Let us check. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it has executed test case 002. Okay, this is basically a suit name. I misunderstood. Sorry for that. And this is actually the test case. Okay, this is how we can include the tags. And if I want to use an exclude tag, then I want to only execute the regression test cases, but I don't want to execute the sanity test cases. In such cases, I can give the exclude tag as a sanity. Then it will execute all the test cases which don't have a tag called sanity. In our cases, it is the regression test cases. So let us try to execute that, and let us again go to the report and refresh here, and from the API it should be the 2, from the API it is 2, from the GUI it should be the 1. So this is how we can use include and exclude tags. Now I want to execute both the tags, test cases from both the tags, both the sanity and regression. For that, what I will do, I will go to GUI and I will add one more test case, GUI test case 3, and I will not associate any tag with them. So total I have 5 test cases now, and if I want to execute both the regression and sanity tag, that will be 4 test case. For that I will have to use the command something like this: -i sanity and -i regression. So I have to give each tag separately, first with the sanity tag and then with the tag regression. Then it will go and execute the 4 test cases from both the sanity and regression tag. Let us see, and let us go to our report and let us refresh this report, and you see from the API side it has executed 2 tests, and from the GUI side it has executed 2 tests. So this is how we can combine the include tags while selecting the test cases. Now let us think about some kind of configuration. During the explanation of CLI, I also told that you can have a good control over the configuration and parameterization, and we can do this via this particular command line option. Let us try to see how to use this particular command line option by name variable. Let us copy this. Now for this example, what I will do, I will try to create an variable, and before this I will add an variable section called as variables, under which I will add an variable called browser. Okay, let us say I will be using a browser for GUI which is a Chrome browser. It's a name as Chrome. Okay, and in the third test case I will be trying to print the my browser, not many. I'll print single as this particular variable, and I will try to pass this variable from my command line, and for that the syntax will be, so I want to execute the GUI test number 3 using the test tag, and I will be using the command line option as variables. I'll copy paste this, and the variable name is and I have to use the key value pair, right? The variable name is browser. I'll use browser and then colon is a value. The value I will use it as edge, and I'll try to execute only one test case because this browser, um, the variable I am using in the test case number 3. Okay, let me try to execute it and see what it prints. Test case got executed, and let us go to the report here, and under this test case, so I am printing a browser, so it has printed edge. This is because we have passed this the variable value via the command line interface. If you see from the command line interface, I have passed this variable value. While talking about a variable, I also told about the priority of the variables, right? So always the value that we set or pass by the command line options will have an highest priority over the value that we set in the variable section. That is how we can pass the variables through the uh, through the command line without basically changing the code. This is one of the important factor that gives us a very high control over the parameterization. So with this can be useful when you try to execute your test cases in a different environment. You might have wrote your test case for a dev environment and you want to execute on a the QA environment or the acceptance environment, and you can basically just pass out the parameters that you basically hard coded to say that which is an development environment. This gives a freedom about the configuration and the parameterization. So I'm not going to talk about all the different command line options, but I'm only going to talk about some useful command lines. One of the another useful command line option is the dry run. Dry run is basically used, which is basically it is like an static kind of testing. Basically, you are not executing your test cases, not a dynamic execution, but this dry run will go through your test case and try to see whether there are any syntax error or not. Okay, as per the definition, the dry run mode tests are run without executing the keywords and originating from the test libraries, useful for validating the syntaxes. If you want to just check your syntax after you have completed your scripting, you can use the dry run parameter. Let us check how it works. Let me come here and I want to check the dry run basically for all my tests. So I'll not give any parameters and I'll just give it as a dry run here. Let us see what it does. It has execute my 5 test cases and let me go to my report and see what it does. Yeah, basically it did not execute any of the keywords. If you see, it did not execute any of the keywords and keywords are not executed here, right? So if you see, in the tear down also, it did not execute any keywords. As the document says, it will not execute any of these keywords, but it will just check your syntaxes. Also one of the good the command line options to be used. So I have covered most of the daily used command line options from the robot framework. Hope you understood what are command line parameters. That brings to the end of this video. In this video, we explored what are command line options, why they are powerful. We also saw the list of command line options exposed by Robot Framework. We also used some of the commonly used command line options from Robot Framework. Hope you enjoyed learning with me. In case if you find this video useful, please support by subscribing to my video. Thank you for watching.